G'day and welcome to the TheJadeRat. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's been about a month since October has finished, so we're going to go through days 22 to 31 of Inktober. So here we go. Day 22. The prompt for this day was open, and the idea that I went for was the Witch King opening the doors of Gondor. I was going to thought about doing Moria, opening the doors of Moria, or the key to get into the Lonely Mountain, but my brother suggested, no, make it more dramatic, use the scene from Return of the King where the Witch King blasts the door open. And I really love the idea for it, but unfortunately I can't draw like dogs or wolves or horses, evidently, and sometimes even people or trolls or whatever they are in the background. This is one of those ones where the idea actually was more ambitious than I would have liked, and I think this is something that would have been really good as a large scale fantasy style painting. The Grond, which is the battering ram, was kind of underwhelming. I wanted it to look more terrifying and scary because the Witch King, who is of course a magical being, he actually imbues runes and spells into Grond, and it actually amplifies its destructive power. And I really wanted to make it more terrifying and have the gates kind of warp and bend and shatter, but this is sort of the extent of my ability on that day to get it done. Next we've got leak, not that kind of leak, but the leak of a leaky dam, and that was day 23, and the idea for it was the damming and then subsequently undamming, releasing of the River Isen. So in the book, the Ents actually create the dam. They divert the river, block up the Isen, and then divert the flood to into Isengard, and essentially it like floods out all of the caverns that Saruman has drilled underneath. But in the movie, of course, they have it so that Saruman has created the dam to power his manufacturing plant, and the Ents kind of break it down. Well, the common theme was that they break it down anyway, regardless of who actually created the dam. And I wanted to have them with their long sort of root-like fingers kind of going in and breaking the stone, because it is described sort of how like tree roots can break up concrete after many years, and they sort of just like crush through it. Similarly, I wanted to show them with their slender viney kind of fingers wrapping into the stone and actually like pulling it apart. And I actually really loved the idea of the Ents and all of their scenes in the book, because nature does end up reclaiming things that we and other civilizations have done before, and it sort of doesn't stop, and when it gets angry they just kind of wreak destruction, it was very cool to read, very exciting part of the book, and I kind of wish, just like Legolas, I kind of wish we got to spend more time with them, and sort of get into what Ents do. So that is day 23. Leak. I'm coming in with green ink as well to sort of bring a little bit of focus onto the Ents themselves, because with ink I've noticed it can kind of get easy to lose whatever you're trying to portray, because you've only got the white of the paper and then the grayish tones of the ink. And surely a better artist could probably convey everything they need to without using color, but for me, I kind of needed that pop of color to make it a bit more obvious. Next we have got Extinct. Now, I did think about doing the Entwives and I was getting kind of depressed about it, so I didn't. But with day 24 Extinct, I thought about the Barrow Downs and the civilization that lived there before the Witch King of Angmar kind of came down and destroyed that civilization, destroyed that kingdom, and then kind of prevented them from ever re-inhabiting that area again because of the Barrow Whites. And I didn't know this before doing this painting, but in the books, like, the Witch King actually goes and reactivates them, and they were, and like, this is 2 days before Frodo got there, and so they were anticipating the movements of the ring that early on, and they had laid this trap out for them because they knew that, there's something in the Shire they're trying to get out, and the easiest way to trap them would be through the Old Forest and then the Barrow Downs. And I thought that was kind of terrifying and also very cool. I loved creating the shadows on the swords and the skeletal hand, having darker shapes at the back to show that, the light only goes so far in. And there is a special cameo from someone in the bottom left corner. Hey doll, merry doll, Ringadillo or whatever it is. But I had a lot of fun with this one. Day 24 Extinct. Now for a little tea break. And we're back with day 25, and the prompt is Splat. And I picked Ale, who is a character in the Silmarillion, is one of the elves of before the Second Age, actually. Yeah, and Ale was a very interesting character. I think probably my favourite among the Silmarillion characters, because he was so, like, crazy. He gave off, like, real chaotic energy. And he was, of course, thrown off of a cliff as a form of because he refused to stay in Gondolin, which is a hidden city. Those familiar with The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings will know that the swords made by the swords used by Gandalf and Thorin are actually created in Gondolin, and this is the city, and it was a hidden city. And he found his way in, stirred up a lot of trouble, and then was ultimately executed. And he was pushed off of this kind of jaggedy precipice, and as he was falling, he said to his son, what happens to me is gonna happen to you soon. And he was sort of thrown off also a cliff, and he also fell to his death. So that's his Ale with Splat for day 25. Next we've got 26, which is Connect. And I thought about connecting, and we've all been in lockdowns and things, so virtual communication is really good. And I thought about what better than Middle-earth's Zoom or WebEx or Skype, which is the Palantiri, the 7 seeing stones created by the Numenorians actually no, they were created by Fëanor and given to the Númenóreans, and then taken to Middle Earth after the fall of the island. And of course Saruman has one, and Sauron has one, and they do their little WebEx chats through the Palantir. And this one was sort of a generic kind of design, having Saruman's eye looking into the Palantir, and it was Sauron's eye reflecting back from the stone. Again, using the red ink to create that bit of a contrast against the grey tones of the ink itself, and also, you know, draw the eye to the eye. Yeah. I actually really liked drawing this one because of all of the wrinkles that Saruman has. He's described as having a long kind of aged face with you know, dark, intense eyes that give away more wisdom than his age sort of implies. And of course the long fingernails and kind of gaunt expression. And that was day 26, Connect. And next we've got Spark, and my brother suggested the image for this one with incredible detail. He said you need to have a holly tree in the background, and Celebrimbor has to be holding a piece of metal while Na'vi hits it with his hammer, and use black with a touch of yellow. And that's what I did. So here it is, Na'vi. First I drew in the spark, which is in yellow ink, just so that I could preserve the crispness of the yellow first, just in case it gets like overtaken by the ink, black ink. And you can see his striking the metal, and they've all got their PPE on, aprons, gloves, safety boots, goggles, hair tied back. Very important, please tie your hair back. And yeah, we've got the anvil, and really did focus on the lighting because it is a spark, so the areas closest to that area, the forging area and the anvil will be illuminated, so there is no shadows on that part, and then we have stronger shadows cast from that as well. And there are the holly trees in the background. I have no idea what holly trees look like, so I had to look it up and get some reference. And yeah, there it is. Day 27. Spark, Celebrimbor and Na'vi creating something. Next we've got number 28, which is Crispy. And this one was I really like the concept for it and the design, especially for Sauron, and that is of course the war where Sauron gets his hand cut off, or finger cut off, and he fights against Gil-galad, the High King of the Noldor, but ultimately Gil-galad gets burnt by the heat of Sauron's hand, I believe is the description that they use. And yeah, it sort of gets roasted and becomes crispy. I like this idea in black and white, and I think later on when I add the color it kind of reduces the impact of it, but yeah, this one was again with the armor and having reflections in the armor was something that I was mindful of at first, but then kind of gave up on halfway through. This paper, which is the Canson sketching paper, I'll pull it up for you. Canson 180 GSM sketchbook paper is good for light washes, but nothing more than maybe 2 or 3 layers. So I had to be particularly mindful of that this time, because the more you run through with water and adding more and more washes of ink, the more warped the paper gets. It's kind of wrinkly and gets harder to draw on as you go. I always felt bad for Gilgalad actually, and also Elrond, because they just kind of end up doing what they have to do. But yeah, Gilgalad's got a spear and he's attacking Sauron. Sauron looks like one of the drawings of Tolkien that Tolkien did, with his hand outstretched. And that is day 28, crispy. Next we've got day 29. The prompt was patch, and we went for old Gaffer Gamgee's garden patch, which sits on Bagshot Row, which I believe is the street on Bag End, the hill. Is old Gaffer there admiring his patch of pumpkins, cabbage, I think they're beans, beans, and something else that I can't remember, maybe onions, or carrots. And he's admiring his patch, but there's someone in the background. Is that a Black Rider, or is it Merry? Which is the greatest sort of suspense for that section. I was so nervous. I was like, who is that? Is it Merry? Is it Merry? Okay, it's Merry. But yeah, day 29, patch. Day 30, we've got Slither. And Slither, of course, is the great red dragon, Smaug. I always called him Smaug, but I believe it's pronounced Smaug. And he's sitting atop his mountain of gold within the Lonely Mountain. I wanted it to be sort of like, the caverns in the background, the hall, sitting in the distance. It's dark, it's fading out into the background, and then of course you've got the piles of gold that he's perched upon. This one is inspired by one of Tolkien's original drawings, where he's sort of wrapped around a pile, and on top of that pile is the Arkenstone, and it's reflecting and glimmering in the cavern. There you can see me looking through the references as well. Didn't want to make it exactly as he had drawn it, but sort of keep that similar style. Tolkien tends to draw the dragons with Smaug especially, with like a sort of long crocodile or alligator type snout. It's very thin, and then it's got like the nostrils, and then almost like a dog-like kind of ears and head. And I did include that sort of fanned ear approach to it. And yeah, I've got the Arkenstone at the top. And that concludes day 30, which is Slither. And finally, we've got the last day. And by this point I was kind of getting over it. I was a bit tired. We were approaching the Hindu festival Diwali, so there's a lot of preparation work going on in the background. And 31 was risk. The prompt was risk because it is very risky to do a lot of things that the heroes of our Tolkien stories go through. But of course, I did decide to go back to the one that started it all for me, which was Lord of the Rings, watching the movie Fellowship of the Ring in the cinemas, being absolutely amazed by it. And this particular scene is when they're in Balin's tomb in the Mines of Moria, and they can hear the drums beating of the goblins or the orcs. They're beating away, and they're all waiting in anticipation. You can see Aragorn to the left, Gimli kneeling by Balin's tomb, Boromir, the chonky lad, at the front. He's the sort of doorman. They will be the first point of contact when the goblins come in through the door. Merry and Pippin. It's either Merry and Pippin or Frodo and Sam, or one combination of them there. Legolas, whose arm looks like it's floating in midair, and then 2 swords and Gandalf's staff to make up the rest of the fellowship. And that is day 31, Risk. Had a lot of fun with this Inktober. Definitely would recommend preparing in advance if you're trying to do Inktober. Have your thumbnails sort of ready to go, and prepared. So now we're going to go through them all. With Risk, Slither, so that's Smaug, Patch, Gaffer Gamgee's Patch, Crispy, Gilgalad being burnt, Spark, Narvi and Celebrimbor, Connect, Saruman looking into the Palantir, Splat, Eorl's execution off of Gondolin, Extinct, the zombie hand from the Barrow Downs, Leak, the River Isen's dam breaking, Open, the Witch King and Grond opening up Gondor, Minas Tirith, Fuzzy, Beorn, Sprout, the White Tree of Gondor, the 4th one, Loop, Glaurung, the Great Worm, Moon, Tilion, the Maya, receiving the flower, Collide, Banderbrast Took, inventing golf, Compass, Orome, guiding the elves from Quivinen, Helmet, the dragon helm of Dol Lomin, Tick, the thrush knocking against the lonely mountain, Roof, the golden hall of Meduseld, Stuck, Bilbo and company, stuck in the lonely mountain, Sour, Lobelia Sackville Baggins, Pick, Guahia and his mates picking up Frodo and Sam, Pressure, Fingolfin versus Morgoth, Watch, Aragorn sitting watch on Amon Sul, Fan, Elendil, Spirit, the Doom of Mandos and Fëanor, Raven, Roak and Kark, not Elvish rope about Gollum, Vessel, Eärendil was a mariner, Soot, Sauron's armor, and finally, the first one we ever did, which is Crystal, the wizard's staff, the crystal upon it. And this one is now a sticker that's available in my shop. That's at TheJadeRat.com. It'll be linked below. And there we have it, Inktober, 31 days of Tolkien's works, Tolkien-inspired works, done in ink. Yeah, thank you for watching, and I will see you all next time.